So most people are lucky enough to be able to go out spontaneously and grab their things and go. For wheelchair users and their carers, it's not actually that simple. And in this video, I just want to explain what I mean by that, how everyday challenges can be difficult, what it's like getting around the area that you live in, and parking, even walking around, getting from A to B. So my name's Debbie. Thank you for joining me. And this is my channel, Our Life After a Brain Injury. So in the UK, if you meet the criteria, you can apply for a blue badge, which entitles you to free parking and an opportunity to use the disabled parking, which is usually closer and easier to park than ordinary parking for able-bodied people. And the thing with disabled parking is that it isn't just right next to the front door. It's also they're actually quite wide, so that when you're trying to get in and out with a wheelchair, you've got the space that you can open your door fully. You don't have to try and climb out of a half-open door. You can get to the boot easy to get your wheelchair or walker in and out. So Stuart and I regularly go to a garden centre near him for coffee and cake, and we go there a lot because it's hard to be spontaneous, so we know what we're getting. We know it's accessible, and I'll talk about spontaneity or lack of it a little bit later. But we go there, it's lovely. We go there regularly, it's lovely. It's all on one level, and the staff are really nice. But the parking situation, there's 5 bays, I think, disabled bays next to the main entrance. They have an awful lot of mainly elderly customers who need those disabled spaces, so that's great, and they're all on hard tarmac. Brilliant, really easy, really nice to use. But when they're full, and they are very popular, the rest of the car park is on gravel. I can't push Stuart on gravel. Now, I'm 60, I see a lot of these couples out and about, and the partner or the carer is usually elderly too. They can be younger sometimes, but it's quite tough to push a wheelchair. Even somebody with a walker, it's quite tough for them to do that on gravel. So I have to, the way I do it, and grass is the same, the way I do it is I have to do it backwards until we get onto a path, and then I can turn around and push him properly. So that's quite frustrating. So they make it accessible, but also slightly difficult. So I always sort of, do a well done when we actually get a parking space. So that's another thing. I go to yet another place we used to go to quite regularly, and disabled bay is great. You get out, get Stuart out, and then it's a big piece of grass across to the entrance of the cafe. And again, I can't wheel Stuart in grass, so I have to turn him round. There's all sorts of ruts and everything. It's not very comfortable. And I worry about, as I get older, I'm 60 now, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I do worry that as I get older, it's going to be tougher and tougher. Stuart is about 12 stone. I changed to a lightweight wheelchair to make my life easier for when we're out and about, and it does make a massive difference. But I do worry as I get older that it's going to become more and more difficult for me to do all of this, as things aren't as accessible. So we tend to stick with what we know, really, because it's safe for both of us. And that leads me on to spontaneity. So before Stuart's accident, we could go out anywhere, anytime, within reason. If we could try places that we'd never been to before, somebody could mention somewhere nice, we could see something nice online, and we would turn up. I can't do that anymore with Stuart. If somewhere says they're accessible, it's always worth doing a recce. If they're local, it's always worth doing a recce first, because accessibility when you're disabled isn't the same as what able-bodied think accessibility is. They are all doing their best, and they, fortunately for them, are all able-bodied, so they don't have any first-hand experience of how difficult it is. So even a step into a entrance is hard for me to get Stuart up, get him over. There's always something in the way to make it to make it difficult. And the same with the toilet situation. Often they'll say they've got a disabled toilet. What they just mean is that they've got an extra toilet that they stick a disabled sign on the side. And if you go in, it's not very big. I have to go in with Stuart and a wheelchair, so it has to be big enough for both of us. I've got to be able to manoeuvre around Stuart, so it's got to have space for that. It should have grips for Stuart to be able to hang on to, so that we can transfer him. All of that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, more often than not, they don't have any of that. They just say disabled toilet because they then think that you can, use that, so that able-bodied people don't use it. And then there's always a toilet to use for disabled users. But again, it just doesn't work. It's just not easy. And for people who go out on their own, it must be really awful. I mean, Stuart never goes anywhere on his own, so I always take him. So it's always up to me to find these things out. So that's why we stick with the same places, which is a bit boring for both of us, really. I would like to extend our sort of cafe culture and go to different places, but it's just easier to stick with the same. There was another really nice place that we used to go to regularly, and especially in the summer, it's lovely. They used to have a platform next to a river, and you can sit down and watch the swans and people paddle boarding and things, and that was really nice. But as they got more and more popular and busier, they put more tables in, and I just couldn't get through with a wheelchair. So the couple of times we tried, sorry, people having to get up and move, and it was just really embarrassing and awkward. And so we stopped going there. I did book a table once, but again, it's about being spontaneous. Sometimes you'll think, oh, I'm passing there, it'd be nice to call in, but if everything's crammed in, because they want to earn more money, so they're getting more tables in. It's a very popular place, but unfortunately for me and Stuart, it just doesn't work anymore, which is a real shame. But I do still go there with friends, which is really nice for me. But unfortunately, I can't take Stuart with me. Even in the winter, it's a really busy place, so it's just no good for us, really. And the other simple things are the doors. Are the doors wide enough? Sometimes they're really heavy. I found a nice, again, garden centre, because in the UK, you can't have a garden centre without a cafe. And that's the law, I think. If it's not, it should be. I found people recommended this garden centre and said, oh, it should be accessible. Again, everybody's being really nice, mentioning places, but unless they've actually got experience of taking a wheelchair user in there, they really don't know how much accessibility we need. So I went there once on my own with Stuart, and the door was really heavy. It was a step up to the door. It was really heavy to get in, and I was trying to push Stuart. I can sometimes ask Stuart to hold the door open for me. If there's too much going on, Stuart doesn't really get the instructions quickly enough and process them and then do it quickly enough, which is quite frustrating. So I've got this heavy door. I'm aware that people are behind me trying to get in. I'm trying to open it, get Stuart, and then once I'm in, I've got a really tight space to get him round and then walk into the restaurant properly. So I went there once, and it was such a faff getting in and out. And then the next time I went with my son. It was much easier having somebody else with me. He could open the door for me, help me get in. But I would really like to go back there, and they've actually got an outside area where you don't have to go through any doors to get to. So me and Stuart can go there, get a table, and I can go into the cafe on my own to make the order. So that we will probably go back there in the summer. So it's just things like that. It's things that you just don't think about unless you're in this situation. And for people who are on their own in wheelchairs, who want to go out, it must be really, really difficult for them. And also, it might look great online, but when you get there, it just doesn't work. There's something that just doesn't make it work. So we can't ever really be spontaneous, which is a real shame for both of us, really. So another example is there's a nice pub up the road from Stuart that we've been to a few times, and we have to use the back entrance to get in, which is fine. We can do that. It's not a problem. Luckily, they have a back entrance. But the last time we were there, we were in we couldn't go inside again because there's another step up, so we can only go when it's nice, really. They've got an outside area that's covered, so as long as it's dry, it's fine. But you can only really go there on nice days. And they had a sort of group of people in around the back having a drink and everything, all very nice Saturday afternoon. But they had shut the gates that we were going to have to use to get out. They just shut them, and they put all their chairs in front of them. And they just then sat there. So, of course, when we left, we had to ask them all to move, and they'd got all the tables and chairs there. So they had to sort of get up and move to let us out. And it's just things like that. They whether they were regulars and they felt that they could do that. But, it just draws attention to yourself, and you feel really awkward, and you just feel like you're being awkward. But, we couldn't go through the pub. There was a massive step into it. It was really tight. It was an old pub. It's really tight manoeuvring the wheelchair around. We just wouldn't have been able to do it. So it's just all a bit awkward and unnecessary, really. But again, these people didn't think. They decided that was the best spot to sit, and they got all their tables and chairs there. So, that's just one of those things. So accessibility isn't just about ticking a box. It's about people being able to live a life and be part of a community, go out with friends, feel independent, and be, comfortable in a space that they're entitled to use. It's quite simple, really, but thankfully there's a lot of people out there who, as I say, don't have first-hand experience, and they're very lucky. Now, I'm not necessarily Stuart's carer because he's in a full-time care home. I'm his wife. I probably often get mistaken for his carer when we're out and about. I know that when I take him for doctor's appointments and things, they often ask me, because they know that Stuart's address is a care home, and they often ask me if I'm carer. I always say, obviously, no, I'm his wife. But for us who are taking our loved ones or friends, children, anybody out that needs a wheelchair, we're also sort of lifting a heavy weight. I mean, an emotional heavy weight as well as physical. But that's the other thing, we're lifting things in and out of the car. I help to get Stuart to stand. He holds onto the door frame, and I sort of help him to stand up and twist him round. I try not to do it too much myself and get him to do it because it's good for his therapy. Then I have the wheelchair right up close so that I can get him in and then into wherever we're going. Is pushing the wheelchairs round. Like I say, I switched to a lightweight one, which makes life a lot easier for me. But some people are pushing around really heavy wheelchairs, and it's really, really hard and exhausting. And one thing that did happen to us, this isn't really about accessibility, but a couple of years ago, I was on the A14, which I was on the way to see our kids, and I took Stuart with me for the day. It's supposed to be a nice day out. And my car just completely, on the A14, the engine just stopped. So there was a lay-by about 400 or 500 yards away, but I just couldn't make it. The car just stopped. I managed to get over onto the side, onto the near side, I think it's called. So I've managed to sort of pull over, but because there was a curb, a high curb, I couldn't get up on that because I had no power in the car. So I just sort of sauntered over to the side, put my hazard lights on. I was in an absolute panic. And in the UK, you're always told that as soon as you break down the side of the road, you get out of the car and you step away from the car and you stand as far away as you can from the car while you phone the breakdown recovery or police or whatever. And I didn't want to because I couldn't get Stuart out the car. It was really busy. There was trucks and buses going past. People were having to obviously overtake me. It was a dual carriageway and people were having to overtake me, going to the other. It was just awful. Really, really scary. And I couldn't get Stuart out the car. I just wouldn't have been able to do it. So I wanted to stay with the car. I was standing on the verge, but I wanted to stay with the car. So I rang the RAC, who were my breakdown people, and they said to ring the police because I was in a dangerous situation. So I did. And in the meantime, I also rang my kids to tell them what had happened. I wouldn't be coming, what happened. I wasn't really even that far from them. I was only about 20 minutes. And my son was saying, get away from the car, Mum, and I was like crying down the phone, and I said, I can't, because your dad's in the car and I can't get him out. If I went and got the wheelchair from the boot of the car, I just thought, how dangerous is that going to be for me and for the other drivers? I couldn't take Stuart's weight to get him out. It was just really, really awful. Anyway, the police eventually came. Everything was fine. But that's the sort of situation you're in when you're in a car with somebody who can't get out very quickly. And it made me think about, if there was an accident or if there was a fire, I would struggle to get Stuart out. And it's really quite a scary thought. But anyway, it was fine. It was all okay in the end. The other thing is just walking around the streets is really difficult. I'm sure people who are a little bit unstable on their feet are also aware of this. People with sticks and walking frames, and people with young kids who are pushing buggies. But the streets around here are terrible. There's potholes on the pathway as well as on the roads. There's dog poo sometimes. A lot of uneven slabs. And when I'm pushing Stuart along, I'm always looking out for dog poo, but I might not have noticed a rut in the path, and suddenly he gets sort of shunted forward, and, he yanks him, and I'm not running along with him, but still enough for him to sort of go forward and be yanked about. So that's always quite difficult. And sometimes if I get him in a rut, I can't then get him out the other side and I have to reverse up. So it's hard work. And the other thing obviously is cars that park on pavements. I'm sure I used to do it myself before without even thinking about it, and you just can't get past them. So you're walking along, minding your own business, you go around a corner and there's a car on the pavement. So then, because I can't get Stuart down the curb, I have to go to the lowered curb. So I have to go back the way I came, look for a lowered curb, so that I can cross the road, go onto the other side just to avoid this car that's parked on the pathway. And the trouble with these lowered curbs, again, it's not until you're using a wheelchair that you realise that they're not directly in front of them. So the one that I want, the first one I cross might be there, and then the one that I need to cross to get onto the other side could be over on further up the road. So then I have to walk across the road diagonally, to get to the other side, and you just think, and then come back again just to avoid this car. So it's just thoughtlessness, and it would be nice if people just thought about that. I know often people say, oh, I'm only going to be a minute, but they never really are they? Nobody's really just a minute. But just have a thought about people who are trying to get by in wheelchairs, because it really isn't that easy. And curbs aren't always that low either. Sometimes you think and you realise it's not, and again Stuart gets lurched out, and then I have to sort of fiddle around with it. So it's all it's all a bit of a nightmare sometimes. But and the thing is, a lot of you out there might be wondering what's the point of this, but it's just to raise awareness, really. And why shouldn't people in wheelchairs have a life? But it isn't just going out and enjoying themselves. It's hospital appointments, doctor's appointments. I read recently, I was watching the local news recently, and there was a guy in a block of flats. I think he was 6 or 7 floors up, and the lift was always breaking down, and he was missing hospital appointments because he couldn't get down. And the council kept promising that they would repair the lift, and nothing happened. And he had elderly relatives that couldn't get up to see him. So, it's really isolating. If things don't work properly, it's really isolating. Thankfully, it isn't that bad for us. It's also good for the economy to get people out. It's not just good for themselves, the individuals. It's good for the local economy. Some people do have disposable income. Things are really, really difficult at the moment in the UK. The cost of living is just going up and up and up. I filled my car up the other day, and it was £15 more than the last time I filled it up a few weeks before. So, we're all facing that, but some people still have money to spend on nice things. So why not make life easier for those people and get them out and about, and get them spending money in the community? It's a win-win for everybody. So I just looked up some facts and figures just out of interest. And in the UK, apparently there's 16.1 million people who are disabled. So that could be anything, obviously, from wheelchair users to walkers. people who might just be temporarily disabled while they're recovering from some surgery or a stroke, and they hopefully sort of get back to some sort of normality. That's an awful lot of people. That's obviously children as well. So that's how many young people and adults are in the UK. And apparently that's 20% of the population. Now, don't quote me on this. I got some of this information from the Gov website and the NHS. So, blame them if my facts are wrong. But there are a lot of people who have accessibility issues, and they need to get out and about. They need to get into the community for different things, for whatever, just for their own mental health as well as their physical health, and for their families too, for people to get out and about. Why should they all be shut away? So just try and think about these people when you're out and about. Don't park in a disabled parking if it's pouring with rain and you really don't need to. Don't think about, just because Tesco's has 20 disabled parking spaces, think, and it's raining. Don't think to yourself, somebody that's disabled wouldn't be out today in the rain, I'll just quickly park in there. Just don't do it. Just get into the habit of not doing it, because you're just making it life difficult for somebody, and it's just really awkward. And then it makes it harder for people to want to go out, because it's always a pain and always difficult. So, and if you're in a position out there where you have got a business, think about, things like making it accessible, like don't put gravel down in car parks or grass, or think about people who are coming in with wheelchairs when you're planning your floor space for your restaurants and cafes. Don't have things in the way so it makes it much harder for them. So yeah, if that is going to make any difference at all to anybody, who knows? There are quite a few people out there who are really doing their best to raise this issue. And one person that I follow is Nick, whose site is called Disabled Adventurer. Now, he's on YouTube. He doesn't do as much on YouTube, but he does loads on Instagram and Facebook. He's a guy in his 40s, ex-military. He's in chronic pain. He uses an electric wheelchair. He lives in council accommodation, which is completely and utterly inadequate for his needs. He does so much to raise awareness for people in wheelchairs. And he wants people to go outside, because he knows how good it is for everybody's mental and physical health. So he does a lot. One of the things that he does is he'll go to a nature reserve or woods or somewhere, and if it says on the descriptions it's accessible, that's what he's sort of challenging them. And it's amazing because he films himself. He goes on his own. He films himself. He's got this electric wheelchair, and he gets himself into right sticky situations. He gets stuck in kissing gates. There was one that I watched that he fell out of his wheelchair tipped over and he fell out, and he's on his own. And you just think he's just doing so much. He's also gone up, I think it was last year or the year before, he went up Snowdon in this amazing sort of accessibility vehicle. He had a sort of team around him that were helping him. I think it took him a long time to recover from that. Just to pave the way, really, for other people and for engineers and inventors out there to think about the more that they can do to make life easier for people who aren't as able-bodied as the majority, unfortunately. So he's a really interesting guy. He's also much more eloquent than me when describing things and talking about things. He does all sorts of TED Talks and public speaking things. So he's a very good speaker. So do go and have a look at, visit his different socials and give him a follow if you can. And there's loads of other people out there as well. But that's one that, in fact, he was recently on his local BBC News because I talked about blue badge parking and how it's free in the UK. You have to apply for it. You have to reapply every 3 years, and I think it's £30 to renew. I might be wrong. And you have to tick all the boxes. You have to have a letter from your doctor. You can't just say, I've got a sore finger, I think I'll have disabled parking. You have to really sort of, like everything, jump through all these hoops. Not literally, thankfully. So in his local car park, the council decided that they were going to start charging blue badge holders. No prior notice or anything. So he filmed himself going to this car park and then the bit where you put the money, go and sort the money out, was on like an island that had a big curb, and he couldn't get up there. He's got an electric wheelchair, and he actually couldn't get on the curb without toppling himself over. He was on his own. He always is. Not always. He actually goes out and about with other friends in wheelchairs, which is just as interesting. But on that day, he was on his own, and he couldn't get to the pay and display, so he couldn't pay to park. Also, like he said, a lot of car parks in the UK now are you can pay online using apps, which some people find really difficult. Some people don't like using them. You've got to download them, sign up, alter just parking space that you might never use again. So a lot of people are very reluctant to use them and want to use the old-fashioned either cash or using their card at the machine. And like you said, even if they are able to download the app and do it online, he said the code for the parking, they have like a 6-figure code so that you know you're in the right parking area when you pay online. He said you could barely see it. It was so small you could barely see it. So anybody with poor visibility wouldn't be able to see it. Admittedly, they wouldn't be driving anyway. But you know what I mean. They're just making it really awkward. So he got on the local news, and the last I heard was that the council apologised and were looking into it. I mean, it's just, again, something like the council should have a accessibility team looking at this sort of thing, so these types of things shouldn't happen. So smaller businesses, I know it's expensive and they struggle to make places accessible for people because they're so small and it costs them a lot of money, but places like the council should have a team that is able to tell them, they've got experience and they know that charging people with a blue badge is, like, morally not very nice, and also don't put the pay and display on the middle of a little island that you've got to then try and get your wheelchair up on, or walking frame, or if you're just unsteady getting up and off this plinth. It's just absolute madness. So that was quite interesting. So thank you for watching, and I hope I've given you some insight into what it's like trying to get around in a wheelchair and or push a loved one around in a wheelchair when it's an able-bodied world, really. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.